He was a man on the run. At least that's what it looked like. Blair Adams, a construction worker from British Columbia, was behaving erratically. He was withdrawing all his money. He was buying plane tickets, one after the other. He was traveling thousands of miles, his movements increasingly frantic. Where was he going? More importantly, what was he running from? The answer, as we would soon discover, died with Blair Adams in a field just outside of Nashville, Tennessee. His death, a brutal mystery that continues to baffle investigators to this day. The details were strange, almost unbelievable. His body was found naked, except for his socks. Cash, thousands of dollars worth, lay scattered around him. His car, discovered miles away, contained even more puzzling clues. Tools, pieces of his life, were strewn about haphazardly. It looked less like a car and more like a life hastily abandoned. The scene painted a picture of a man running scared, his life unraveling at the seams. What transformed this seemingly ordinary man into a phantom, flitting across the continent in a state of sheer terror? The answer, it seemed, lay buried somewhere in the last few days of Blair Adams' life. Days filled with cryptic phone calls, strange encounters, and a fear so palpable it clung to him like a shroud. This is the story of Blair Adams, a story of a descent into fear, a desperate flight, and a mystery that continues to haunt. Blair Adams was, by all accounts, an average man. A 31-year-old construction worker from Surrey, British Columbia, he lived a simple life. He worked hard, enjoyed the company of his friends, and was known for his kind heart and gentle demeanor. There was nothing in his past, no dark secret, that could have predicted the terror that would soon engulf him. Then, in the summer of 1996, something changed. A darkness seemed to descend upon Blair's life, a shadow that crept in from the edges and began to consume him. His family and friends noticed a shift in his demeanor. He became withdrawn, his easy smile replaced by a haunted look. He spoke of being followed, of being in danger but wouldn't or couldn't explain why. His anxieties manifested in unusual ways. He began to exhibit signs of paranoia, convinced that someone was watching him, plotting against him. He started acting erratically, his behavior growing increasingly bizarre as the days wore on. His once organized life was falling apart, a clear indication that something was terribly wrong. The man who meticulously planned his days, who kept his finances in order, was gone. In his place was a stranger, driven by an unseen terror, his actions as unpredictable as the fear that seemed to consume him. Blair's descent into panic culminated in a flurry of strange and desperate actions. He began to withdraw all his money, emptying his bank accounts and maxing out his credit cards. He gathered thousands of dollars, a small fortune to him, and then did something completely out of character. He disappeared. His family and friends were bewildered. They knew something was wrong, but they had no idea what had triggered this sudden and drastic change in Blair. His disappearance, coupled with his recent behavior, painted a picture of a man running scared, but from what, they couldn't even begin to fathom. Days later, Blair resurfaced, but only briefly. He called his mother from Seattle, his voice strained, his words rushed and disjointed. He claimed he was in trouble, that people were after him, but he wouldn't, or couldn't, elaborate. He pleaded with her for help, his voice thick with fear before abruptly ending the call. The next few days were a blur of frantic activity. Blair, now in the throes of full-blown paranoia, embarked on a bizarre cross-continent journey. He boarded a flight to Washington, D.C., then another to Georgia, his movements erratic, his behavior increasingly unpredictable. He purchased tickets on different airlines, sometimes minutes before departure, as if trying to throw off pursuers that may or may not have existed. Blair's journey finally culminated in Nashville, Tennessee. He arrived on July 11, 1996, his movements in the city as baffling as his cross-country flight. He checked into a motel, but instead of seeking refuge, he left his belongings scattered in the room, almost as if he had been interrupted in the middle of a frantic search. He was last seen alive on July 13th, acting erratically in a gas station. Witnesses reported him looking disheveled and agitated, claiming that someone was trying to kill him. He even showed a worker a map, pointing to a location in Knoxville, Tennessee, claiming it was the only place he would be safe. His fear was palpable, his desperation evident in his every move. But from whom was he so desperate to escape? What had he stumbled upon that had driven him to such extremes? The answers, if they existed at all, were elusive, shrouded in the mystery of Blair's final hours. 2 days later, on July 15th, Blair's body was found in a field just outside of Knoxville, the very place he had pointed out on the map. He was naked, his clothes folded neatly beside him. The only item he wore was a pair of socks. Scattered around his body was more than $4,000 in Canadian and American currency, contradicting any theory of robbery. The discovery of Blair's body only deepened the mystery surrounding his death. The initial autopsy provided few answers. While the cause of death was determined to be a blow to the chest, likely from a blunt object, there were no defensive wounds on his body, suggesting he did not struggle with his attacker. His car was found a few miles away, parked behind a construction site. Inside, the police found more questions than answers. Tools, clothing, and personal belongings were scattered throughout the vehicle, as if Blair had been packing in a hurry, his flight interrupted. Theories about Blair's death abounded. Some speculated that he had stumbled into a drug deal gone wrong, while others believed he had become entangled with dangerous individuals who had finally caught up with him. His erratic behavior, coupled with his paranoia, led some to believe he might have suffered a psychotic break, his actions driven by delusions. The police investigated each lead, chasing every thread of information, but the case remained cold. Blair's family and friends were left with unanswered questions, haunted by the image of a once vibrant man consumed by a fear they couldn't comprehend. Despite the best efforts of law enforcement, Blair Adams' case remains unsolved. The passage of time has done little to dim the mystery surrounding his death. His bizarre behavior, his frantic journey, and the circumstances surrounding his death continue to baffle investigators and amateur sleuths alike. Was he a man running from something real, or was his flight fueled by a mind teetering on the brink? Did he encounter foul play, or was his death a tragic accident, a case of being in the wrong place at the wrong time? The answer, like pieces of a shattered mirror, remains elusive, reflecting only fragments of a truth that may never be fully known. The lack of concrete answers has allowed speculation to thrive. Theories range from the mundane to the outlandish, each attempting to stitch together the disparate threads of Blair's final days. But none can fully explain the totality of his actions, the sheer terror that seemed to possess him, or the brutal finality of his demise. The unsolved case of Blair Adams stands as a chilling reminder that even in our modern world, some mysteries remain beyond our grasp. It's a story that chills us to the bone, forcing us to confront the unsettling possibility that there are forces at play in the universe that we may never fully understand. As we delve into the enigmatic details of Blair's story, we're left grappling with more questions than answers. What led this seemingly ordinary man down such a dark and perilous path? What terror pursued him across the vast expanse of North America? And who, ultimately, was responsible for his untimely and brutal end? The truth, for now, remains elusive, shrouded in a veil of speculation and unanswered questions. The case of Blair Adams serves as a stark reminder that sometimes reality can be stranger than fiction, and some mysteries, despite our best efforts, may never be fully solved. What do you think happened to Blair Adams?